I mean, I think the biggest thing is like when it comes to politics, like you learn, you grow, you develop, right? So for myself, I had to reevaluate my political ideology, and I realized that Marxist-Leninist thought answers the problems that I had with the capitalist system, but actually has real solutions that have manifested themselves in real life.
Okay. All right. A lot of people lately have seemed perplexed as to what the Israeli end game seems to be per Gaza and Palestine. And they figure that Israel is making bad decision and pretty much foolishly headed to a disaster of sorts where everybody hates them and they're isolated, and even there's however many people claiming that there will be armies of Middle Eastern nations descending on Israel if they continue with the push on Gaza with the ceasefire set to expire. That Israel's going to keep with their genocidal march to take out Gaza, and this will outrage everyone to the point where Israel's completely isolated by the world, and they're under attack by this is I think completely complete blindness to certain factors and what Israel is up to, and in particular with Netanyahu, who campaigned on a friendship with Putin and a relationship with Russia, and had criticized other Israeli leaders for botching Russian relations and this relationship that he's built, because he's personally friends with Putin, and I think he sees Putin as sort of like a king of the third world, a king of the global south, if you will. And because the way, keep in mind, Israel, certain people I think get caught up in the idea that it's like a U.S. satellite or something, or strictly a Western client state, but as if they don't play other angles themselves or don't have other relations, as if China isn't investing big bucks into Israel. And Israel, I think, sees opportunities to get all their neighbors under control if not integrated under the Western systems with different Arab dictators kind of lording over their realms. If they can whatever ones that they can't, they can integrate into like the BRICS system, the alternate system, because they're gonna play every side. They're going, if you can't wipe someone out, you figure, or maybe they figure, that you can play them, or play someone off another, or so. And Russia is in this position, and this is how they've been dealing with Russia as well, because they have Syria right next door, and they've had a long and somewhat meaningful war where Russia's position, and where Israel's really dealing with Russia all the time. And even it's a situation where, I mean, it's really ideal for Israel, where otherwise it might be some kind of jihadi state or something, or who knows how it would have gone. or even like a left-wing thing, more prone to action than the Assad regime, where the Golan Heights have been occupied for years and years now without a shot fired really by Assad's people. And then Russia steps in, and it's even better. It's better for them than when Iran was, when Assad had to rely on Iran. Assad preferred Russia, and Israel preferred Russia as well. And this is what they said, and however many people have noted, they were more comfortable dealing with Russia. Russia asked less of them. Iran is trying to build their spreading their religion and all these other things. So they come with more. People don't want to deal with them as much. Russia is preferable. So for our Israel, Russia moving in was a good situation, and they coordinated with Russia every day. And they could wipe out Syrian soldiers at will without fear of retaliation, because Russia's going to tell them not to. So, you need us. You rely on us, and we keep a relationship with Israel. This is Russia, and so you're not gonna strike back. If Israel kills your troops, you will do nothing, and that's what they do. So even though the Assad justification, however many Assadists say this, will say, we're fighting Israel, or Israel's out to get Assad, or Israel tries to get Assad. Israel's trying to. Israel's like, we've got to take down Assad. And their claim Assad is. But actually, but then you turn around and you say, well, when's Assad going to attack Israel? Well, you can't. He'd get wiped out in a day. You can't do that. But they're so into. But for Israel, they probably see this relationship as a good thing that could be extended however far, especially to Iran. If you keep Iran reliant on Russia, that's why it's more of a nightmare for them if Iran has like a nuke deal or something and can get out of the Russian orbit, where they're out of they get Russia off their back. Israel would rather have Russia lord over all these other regimes. So they say if you don't like the United States, you might enjoy Russia more. So that's how they can control actually the whole region. If and they could maybe get however many third worldist stave off any kind of revolutionary activity by kind of siphoning it into the Russian orbit. Which won't be, it might seem that it'll be dangerous to them, but they know it's handled. They might say, anti-Semitic stuff, but they'll figure it's handled, because you've got them with Russia. So then they can use, then they have the West, and especially the U.S. military power to clobber people otherwise. So the U.S. could be the military wing, and then they have other diplomatic channels. If not the Western affiliated Arab dictators, they'll get the other Middle Eastern factions under Russia-backed dictators or so forth. And you could extend this however far. And this is Russia is not trying to get out of any kind of globalist system. This is also part of their multipolar vision. Okay, and Netanyahu totally understands this, because he knows that he's said before that Putin is he's totally obsessed with Russian power and Russia's greatness. So he'll do anything to, for Russia's greatness. I think he sees it more. I agree, more or less, that I think for Putin, it wouldn't be being the richest man or something isn't as in the world isn't as meaningful as if he could be the Russian superhero, if he can restore Russia to its rightful place and be the great guy. Netanyahu sees Putin as someone as that's how he thinks. It's not so much he's under threat by NATO. He's upset. He's so scared. His hand is forced, and he doesn't. He wishes for peace, and his actions are purely defensive. But his hand is forced. He has to go to battle, and I don't think Netanyahu has any illusions about that. And he is kind of someone who. He is also someone who's kind of down to brass tacks like this and sees Israel in the same way. So, his thing, and he's not someone who takes any kind of peace deals, say with the Palestinians, seriously. So, and he knows that Putin thinks the same way, that you make these deals and it's kind of these international deals and it's kind of a joke. So I think he sees that as a better spot than say what like Ukraine is offering or so. And however much time has passed, and I've just kind of observed, not in any conspiratorial way where I'm looking for the backroom deals that are what's really going on, but just seeing seeing things at face value. If there would be any kind of change with Israel and Russia, if any of that, like Russia condemning Israel is a meaningful thing, or if Israel would move closer to Ukraine, whereas in the past they haven't because they want to maintain this relationship with Russia. And Ukraine, for their part, is trying to, and is getting rebuffed, but is trying to reach out to Israel. I would say that Ukraine is basically pro-Israel, even if not every pro-Ukraine person is pro-Israel. I think that they're trying to they see it like we're in the same boat. We are under attack. We have hostile neighbors who, we think are just ruthless killers, and in fact, and have ties with each other. So, because Hamas is tied to Iran, is tied to Russia, and Iran has backed Russia in Ukraine, giving them these drones and things. So, but Ukraine hasn't been like Israel isn't really having it. So, I mean that's just the truth. Israel has tried to approach, or Ukraine has tried to approach Israel. Hey, we're in the same boat. That Israel will often note that Ukraine has in the past voted against Israel, say at the UN, and they'll always bring Ben Shapiro or any kind of like monitoring anti-Semitism or something. They'll always bring why should we help Ukraine when they voted against us all the time in the UN. So they hold grudges in a but and all these other things. But the main thing is that a lot of the people in the pro-Netanyahu camp, which isn't all of Israel and isn't all of Israeli thought, because I think a lot of people in Israel have different opinions on this. So certainly there's going to be a hardcore pro-Russian faction in Israel, which is largely due to is all the Russian immigration to Israel, which was a controversy back in, say, back in like the 70s or so, and like throughout the Cold War, that there's all these Jews, they're trying to get out of the Russian orbit, or they're trying to get out of Russia itself, and they're trying to immigrate to Israel. And the U.S. would try to help them with, try to make a fuss out of this. that the Soviet Union is preventing. But eventually, they get to Israel, and how many of these new Israelis have whatever connection to Israel? Maybe like a distant, maybe like they're 1/8 Jewish or not Jewish at all. But they're just saying that they're Jewish because they want to get out of Russia, which is why there's like neo-Nazi gangs in Israel and like Tel Aviv, because there's all these people, and these people tend to just still be kind of pro-Russia. So there's a major faction of like pro-Russian people, but a lot of people in Israel have different opinions on stuff, and might be more pro-America or pro-Western than you might think, or that other influence would have you believe. But Israel looks a blind eye to stuff like Russia. Russia say is probably in a way the biggest purveyor of anti-Semitism in the world, and which is ironic enough of however many. If Israel wants to say, they need to fight anti-Semitism or so forth, but they're willing to let Russia do it because they think they see Russia doing it cynically, and they're always prepared to kind of use, if you can't sway people, you can control the narrative in other ways, or you can you see this stuff as useful in a way. You see some of the stuff as the more people are hostile, you can present that in a bad light. However, conspiracy theorists will play on this however much, but there could be some truth to it, or at least they're just tacitly, or just in reality, there is a symbiotic relationship off that. They're not so much completely offended by it, and they're just not. I mean, that's just reality, and however much you might want to think on different things, because people will say all this stuff like Russia is the arch nemesis of like the Zionists or something, and like Douglas McGregor, like all these other people, they'll say Russia, like the neocons or the Trotskyites, who are people who want to take Russia down, and Russia's their ancient nemesis. This isn't really true. They don't have some burning hatred for Russia, especially Russia, like the old Russia, the Tsar. Like they're so mad about the Pale of Settlement and all this stuff, and they're mad about Cossack pogroms more than what the Germans that they're more mad about this because reasons. This is kind of ridiculous. I'd say Russia is a traditionally anti-Semitic nation, and more so than Germany even. But it's not like these same people will turn around and say that these Trotskyites and these people, they took over Russia. They weren't Russian, but they took over Russia, and these Bolsheviks, okay. So then they left to go to Israel. So then there's the Zionists. The Zionists took over Russia. Even though no one could take over Russia, they'll say the Zionists took over Russia, and then they bail to Israel. They bail to Israel, and then you figure they after they kill everyone and they spend years like genociding everybody. This is what what their own narrative is. So wouldn't you figure if that's what if this is what you believe, don't you figure they would just still be able to control Russia again or something, or the Russians have woke up to it all or something? Give me a break. They figure, and here's the thing: all the SARS people either died or had to flee or whatever because they were completely, the nobility was ethnic cleansed, and they might say it was a class war, but it was more, it was more of a race war, not necessarily. It wasn't necessarily all Zionists took over everything. This is more like the Russians of today. So it's not the same, and Israel doesn't see them as the same. They don't see this as a new Tsar. They maybe see this as some bozo pretending to be Tsar for all the rubes to, they get it. They get the idea of manipulating people. They get the idea of playing people and playing the opposition. So the future for them is maybe looks safer than you make, because they're working that angle. Because there's who's gonna attack Israel? Egypt, Egypt gets from the United States about 1/3 of what Israel gets, which is criminal. But that's a lot. So you think they're gonna just attack Israel with? They couldn't even do it anyway. They don't have that kind of leadership. They don't have that kind of army. And no one else, Jordan or something, Syria, we already know that Assad will never. Israel attacks Assad all the time. And the idea that he would attack Israel is preposterous, because Israel would just grow by however big Syria is. They would wipe them out. And however much. And then with Iran, they see it as the same thing, because Iran is not trying to, doesn't look like they're trying to jump into this thing. So I could be wrong, but I think it'll stay about the same. And partly, I think, is because they're kind of caught off guard. I don't think they want to jump in. So they just assume if Russia provides a way to bail out and to save face and to give some benefit, to keep, they'll take it and they'll do it. Like even Hezbollah is, they're already saying, unless they change their mind, but they're saying pretty much they're not jumping in. They say they'll jump in. Nasrallah's red line is if once every Palestinian is killed, that's his red line, because Iran didn't tell, or because Hamas didn't tell him ahead of time, and Iran's saying the same thing. So this is how I see it. It could be different, and I definitely agree with people who see Iran. I would say Iran is masterminding a lot of terror attacks and different. They're behind a lot of clandestine activity. And they see this as well. That's why their big hero is like Soleimani, and so, because they give him all these superhero attributes, like he's doing all this crazy stuff in the shadows or something. That's what they figure is going on. So they're always going to figure it. They basically have their people who are like Q type people. Like it's like Agent Q or something, where Trump is always doing stuff behind the scenes, and they believe all this stuff in the Middle East about the Mukhabarat and all this, and different secret police factions are doing all this plotting, and they figure it's how our minds work over here. It's how we play, But that's real easy to control someone like that, and to just create a mystical world where different events are going on, where nothing real materializes. Because it would take quite a bit to organize for a big push on Israel, like what McGregor describes or something, or he'll say like Turkey's going to do it, and he says all this stuff because it puts Russia in a position to be like the peace person, And you see even what Elon Musk is over there, and he's talking to Netanyahu, and he's got all his ideas and how they'll civilize the Gaza and things. And I think this works right into this goes with the whole thing. So they're not like Elon Musk is someone who would, like a lot of people, they get red pilled on the JQ. And then they take, like you would say Elon Musk, people would say Elon Musk describes himself as philo-Semitic and aspirationally Jewish. You know, he says that this is what he said. These are his words. Those are quotes that he describes himself as. And this is what route a lot of people take. If like the Japanese, when they got the protocols, they they were convinced that this is how they could make a friendship with the United States, because they figured that Jewish people control the United States, and that's how they can get influence over the United States by making influence with Jewish people. So a lot of people are going to take that route if they're, exposed to, because you don't. That's why it doesn't really go anywhere if you just red pill people with facts, because you don't know how they're going to take it. They're not necessarily going to be, they're not going to like take arms or something and join some, fight against Zog or something. Something, that most people aren't really up to that. There actually isn't really a faction at all, like in the world, that's like it's not like what Varg believes or something isn't like politically relevant in any kind of meaningful way, like as what what people kind of describe as like the Nazi like anti-Semitism. Except I guess maybe with Hamas they figure, but even then that's different. They're gonna see that as different. They see them as lesser. They see them. This is how they see them, and they can control them. They can get the boot on them and control them, or they can get however many other people to also put their boots on them, or to easily cast a few, control them, with breadcrumbs essentially, or like they're figuring it doesn't take much to get this under control, because what other option do they have? They're gonna try to, I think they're probably reducing population purposefully ahead of time. Like, this is how I think Netanyahu thinks, and so he's a big counter-terror guy. Terrorism is his obsession, and he also is not someone who takes peace deals seriously. He doesn't see it as a thing. He has a cynical approach to them. Okay, so this is why I think that stuff like Netanyahu and Putin and their friendship is meaningful. And wait, not because if you just figure everything, all Zionism is one big thing, and Russia and whatever Russia represents to you is its own thing. But I think a lot of this is going to rest on leadership and on the particular politics of these regimes. So this is why I like. So Netanyahu, he's not going to be that interested in these peace deals, which he thinks is going to just delay the inevitable. What they really need to do is it's people making them do stuff that they don't want to. So now they have opportunity here to really play into with what's going on. And I think this is where they've also beaten Hamas in a way that Hamas, I think, figured that Iran's going to jump in. And Israel's got tricks up their sleeve on why they're not going to, even though they made a figure that they would. I mean, they still can, but it's not necessarily looking like they're gearing up for some total war with Israel and the United States. They're going to try to play whatever angle still, but that could go however, and that could be directed elsewhere too. Like they could just attack the United States, and Iran can be directed to instead of attacking Israel, to attack the United States or foreign bases and such. In ways that's more comfortable for Israel, because they could just say, well, just like Bin Laden would say, well, this is like the same. This is like the same as attacking Israel because the U.S. is a big. Israel's a client of the U.S. Okay, it's really good, and there's how many of the global South revolutionary types, and the third world is the whole faction is Russia. It's BRICS, and it's China, and it's countries investing a lot into Israel. So this, you might figure, well, this looks like it's all busting up because Russia indirectly supports Hamas, and Russia has condemned Israel and runs them out. Israel knows that they're liars. Israel knows, Netanyahu knows that he has to lie about certain things. He has to pretend peace deals are real. And things like that. He has to say certain things. And he relates. And he figures Putin's doing the same thing. This is more of the dynamic that I think is going on. I mean, because otherwise it could look different. Let's say Ukraine, we're in the same boat. Israel, throws it down against Russia and says we're not putting, you backed Hamas or something, and we're gearing up for this fight, or even say conservatives we have Republicans who will say, well, don't support Ukraine, support Israel. And why are we giving money to Ukraine when we could give all this money to Israel, who needs weapons and he needs money? And this is what Republicans will say. And it wouldn't take much for Israel to do some messaging with this. Hey, actually, we don't have a problem with each. Or they could say, or if you want to fund your border and also Ukraine and also Israel, that seems totally adequate. We're not asking for more than that. We're not asking. This could be part of their thing, but they are going with, or we're going to make this a separate issue. A special thing. Israel is happy to have it like that, and they're not trying to. I mean, it could look like you might say, well, why should they do? But they could. It could if they wanted to go a certain way with it. They could look more like that, or more, whatever you think is realistic. It could go more in that direction. But I mean, it's not, is it? That where I don't see them do that. I've seen it. I've seen some. Like there are Israelis who are mad at Russia. There are Israelis who are pro-Ukraine. There are, and definitely a lot of Jewish people in the United States are, and so there are different factions like that going on, but a large one with Netanyahu himself, and with the people like Ben Shapiro or so, who say much the same, who would like and all these other conservatives who are hardcore Zionists, they would like to see a Russia-Israel relationship continue, where we're backing Israel only, not Russia's enemies, because Russia's supposed to be, there's supposed to be a relationship there that they're building, even though, and this seems that, I mean, this is just what you see. I'm not I'm not following the money or something, or I'm just kind of looking at things face value, how people present, who they're pro, what side they're pro, what they favor, and just interpreting it from that, and the messaging, and actually just the messaging that they put out. Not to say that I'm totally believe all their messaging, but I think it's always worth noting what their messaging is, like, like what they are trying to say. You'd say it's all cynical. Some of it is, but it's always still meaningful, and it's going to be politically meaningful what they say, because they're choosing words, and their words are not meaningless, even if they, for instance, when like I don't think Israel takes Russian officials that seriously, if no matter how much they might say anti-Semitic type stuff, or like Elon Musk has, and they know these are philo-Semitic, and there are guys in there, they're kind of fine with it. They're gonna look the other way. They're not gonna fight anti-Semitism if they're where they're not wanting to. They can get it where they want it to. If they want, and otherwise they might choose to, make a big fuss over it, or so. It's where they want it to be, though. Not that they're totally masterminding all the stuff. I don't necessarily think they are, and I think these relationships can fall apart. I don't think this is a totally concrete master plan by deep state elements who are I think these are relationships that can fall apart, but I think it is what they are, and it's why they're behaving as they are. I think I think it's possible that Iran does get more involved and does anger the U.S. in a bigger way, or even make Israel obligated to act against them or something, or to widen the conflict. This could happen, but I think it would represent things going off the rails. I'm because I don't think this is necessarily a big, Israel's controlling both sides, and it's not necessarily how I see it. I mean, I think that they are manipulating both sides, but not that they have everything under their thumb. Definitely, you see in the U.S. that everything's going off the rails, and in the West, to some degree, I think they're alarmed to a degree by the third world sentiment against them, and all the people of color raging against it, and Black Lives Matter raging against Israel. I don't think this is part of their master plan, but I think they figure they can head them off at the pass in a way if they make these moves to get with Russia and things. Not that it's a done deal, but I think that's what Netanyahu is going for. But anything can, I'm not even for this. I've been watching and listening, and that's how I see it. It could have went a different way. People could have made different decisions, and it could still go. But I think this is going to influence things going forward, and it's something that should be paid close attention to. That Israel's not completely just beholden to the United States and the West. That they are keeping a relationship going with the BRICS system, with Russia, China, and from there they can round up any other Muslim concern for Palestine, which they figure is manufactured. And how Zionists will present this is that the Palestinian cause is largely manufactured, by all these other states and things, and so the whole thing can be, it could be turned into something else. And if they have people to influence things, they can turn it into something else, especially if they have suddenly a lot of the people who used to peddle anti-Semitism or still do, but they can turn it into something else. So they might look at Russia, like Operation SIG and stuff like that, but they figure in a way this is cynically done. So it's better to deal with people like this or so, which is, I would say, is not correct, and it is it shows how cynically that they look at different things like anti-Semitism, and how certain people look at this, and if they're going to be friends with Russia, and they're not, they'll let it go when, for reasons. But I do think that's what they're doing, and you just look at how much business they do with China, because you might figure, well, they're totally relying on the U.S. Not necessarily, because they can just as easily just partner up with China, who's investing heavily into Israel, and so is Russia. So the BRICS system, the more you integrate these other kind of rogue states with that, the more, the more they look at that as another partner who they've worked with before, who they work with in Syria, who they make sure that these people aren't hostile to Israel. They get all these other people under their thumb. So it's like, so they know Putin, what his game is. He wants a big Russia, new Eurasian imperium. They're fine with that. They don't want to mess with that, because they'll say, well, Ukraine's not, they vote against us at the UN, and they're anti-Semitic, and like Russia said, they're Nazis, and Russia's going to play this up. They have they have their whole propaganda deal, a movie making deal, and they could make all the stuff against Nazis and stuff and whatever else. With this, they can kind of head both sides up. They can play the different sides, and then any genuine, like if there's someone like more genuine, they're gonna get drowned out. Like if there's a genuine Palestinian voice or something that's actually saying what more of the Hamas line, they're drowned out anyways by the Jackson Hinkles and stuff. The Jackson Hinkle will represent, or the Palestinians, from now on, and people like that. so they figure it's not as threatening if you funnel into that. Not, at least I'm speaking specifically of Netanyahu's people, the Netanyahu faction. This is how I think they see the relationship with Russia, and it could all change in Israel, but right now I think Netanyahu's kind of got it, as long as because he does have to kind of deliver also against Gaza and do all these things. He's expected to, but I think that's why they figure, even if everybody hates Israel, it's not that bad. Like, because otherwise you would figure it looks really bad. They're surrounded by all these neighbors who hate their gods. They just wipe these people out, but they have ways of making them more docile. They have relationships, and so they have people who can play others off of others and so forth. So it's not a perfect plan, but I think that is the plan. So we'll see how it goes.